Welcome to Get Over It, the consciousness transforming podcast for exceptional 21st century living. We've got a very interesting show today on a subject that I am not familiar with, so we're going to let this author, Paul Levy, just talk and talk and talk. We're speaking today with Paul Levy, and the book is Wetiko, Healing the Mind Virus That Plagues Our World. Very interesting book, very deep, easy to read, and the information, kind of just grabs you, so I highly recommend this book. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break through blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that is holding you back. But you guys know I always ask that question, are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. A bit about me for my new listeners: intuitive since birth. I'm a third generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience helping people break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I'm the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind, body, spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. My clients tell me that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website. That's moniquechapman.com. And I invite you to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe. My guest today, a pioneer in the field of spiritual emergence, Paul Levy is a wounded healer in private practice, assisting others who are also awakening to the dreamlike nature of reality. Among his books are the recently released Wetiko, Healing the Mind Virus That Plagues Our World, and Quantum Revelation, and Dispelling Wetiko, Breaking the Curse of Evil. He is the founder of the Awaken in the Dream community in Portland, Oregon. He's an artist. He is deeply steeped in the work of C.G. Jung and has been a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for over 35 years. He's a faculty member of the Shift Network, and you can check him out at his website, and that is awakeninthedream.com. Again, awakeninthedream.com. Welcome, Paul.
I am so happy to be here with you, Monique. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have you. So please explain to us, what is Wetiko? I am completely not familiar with it. So we need all the education you want to give us.
Sure. Well, Wetiko, it's a Native American term, and it's actually this virus of the mind. It's a mind virus that's literally at the bottom of the madness and the evil that's playing out in the world today. And so, there are all these ways I can describe it. It's a psycho-spiritual disease of the soul. It's this blindness, like a mind blindness, that in a sense we're all infected by in potential. It exists in the collective unconscious, which is to say that we all potentially, can fall prey to it at any given moment. And it operates through the projective tendencies of the mind. And the origin of Wetiko, and keep in mind, this is a Native American term, but every spiritual tradition throughout history has been pointing at Wetiko just in their own creative way. And its source is within our psyches. And that means that the solution is also within our psyches. And one final thing, just to complete the real succinct, intro to Wetiko, is that it's a quantum phenomena. And what I mean by that is that, similar to how, when quantum physicists discovered light is either a wave or a particle, which are complete contradictions, depending on how we observe it, Wetiko, this mind virus, is the source of the greatest evil. And it contains its own vaccine. It contains its own medicine. And not only that, it's actually the greatest catalyst for human evolution. So it's this revelation that is being offered to us. But if we don't recognize what it's showing us, it kills us. Okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
Wetiko in a nutshell.
Okay, so how do we recognize what we're dealing with, whether is it healing for us or making us more insane?
Yeah. Well, the thing about Wetiko, it's what I call this dreaming phenomena. And what I mean by that, it's something we are literally creating. We are dreaming up in each and every moment or not. Okay, there's no such thing as Wetiko as an objective, independently existing mind virus that we should be afraid of. It feeds off of fear. So we are literally dreaming it up moment by moment. And, that's pointing at that we have, you see, it's an expression that we are not in touch with our creative power. Each of us, we all feel so helpless with the madness that's going on in the world, but each of us have this enormous creative agency at our disposal. We always have it 24/7, but we don't know we have it. So because we're unconscious of our creative power, then we will literally dream up the external world in the form of a collective psychosis, i.e. the Wetiko psychic epidemic, to actually pick up our own creative agency in a way and turn it against us.
Okay. So break it down a little bit further and
Yeah, sure.
deal with it as everybody in the world right now is going through some form of COVID, pre, post, whatever.
Right. Oh, totally. We're all in a state of incredible collective trauma. Now, a very simple way of understanding, because Wetiko, it's such a multidimensional and profound idea, but a very simple way of understanding it, in the apocryphal text of the Bible, they're continually talking about, Wetiko, they, meaning Christ, and they call it the counterfeiting spirit. And of course, that got edited out of the Bible. It's in the apocryphal text because I point out that Wetiko was on the editorial board, but how they describe the counterfeiting spirit. So it actually puts us on this counterfeiting spirit. Spirit has no creativity, but it impersonates us. And so it puts us on with a fictitious version of ourselves. Oh, I'm limited, I'm wounded, I'm traumatized. And if we're not awake in that moment, we will unconsciously identify with its limited version of ourselves. And then we've stepped out of our true nature of who we actually are. So what we've actually done are three things. We've given ourselves away. We have identified with who we are not. And then we've disconnected from our creative agency. That's a recipe for madness. And that's Wetiko right there. That's a description of how Wetiko works. And then it becomes a self-reinforcing feedback loop. As soon as we identify with this limited, traumatized, wounded version, you see, being a dreamed up phenomena, Wetiko is revealing to us the dream-like nature, because this is a collective dream that we are all dreaming up moment by moment. And that's part of the revelation of Wetiko. So it's actually, that's showing that hidden in the pathology is this blessing. It's literally helping us. But if we don't recognize the revelatory aspect of Wetiko, then it just assumes it's programmed function where it kills us, but it doesn't even exist. We are complicit. We are dreaming it up. So that's what I mean when all of this is a dreaming phenomena. And I could write a book about that. And I've written two with a third one on the way, all about Wetiko being a dreamed up phenomena.
So as we're dreaming up this phenomenon and we're in this energy that we're swimming in today, once we realize that our thoughts being connected possibly to mass mind consciousness is not helping us, how do we extract ourselves from that?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, because, the thing that takes away Wetiko's power is to see it. Because remember, it operates through the blind spots of our psyche. And as long as we don't see it, we unwittingly offer ourselves to be an instrument through which it incarnates, and we're oblivious. We don't even know that that's happening. And so when we see Wetiko, we take away its power and we become empowered. But it's not an object that we see in an ordinary way, in a subject-object way, because it operates through the very psyche. That's the medium of its operations, and that's also the medium through which we're investigating it. So it's not an object that we see, but when we begin to see how it's informing and giving shape to events in the world, as well as it's like activating our own unconscious reactions to those events, we begin to discover, oh, there's a non-local field. This is a physics term. There's a non-local field in which we're all contained, of which we're all expressions. And all of a sudden to see the non-local field, and in that non-local field, which is quantum in nature, there's no separate parts. So all of a sudden we're beginning to expand our vision when we begin to see Wetiko and begin to see holistically. And that actually, our heart opens, our awareness expands, and we get in touch with our own wholeness. And that's kryptonite to Wetiko.
Very interesting. So how do we actually heal it?
Yeah.
Or can we?
Well, when we Wetiko, I mean, and keep in mind, people who understand what Wetiko is, for example, in the Castaneda books, Don Juan Carlos' teacher was pointing at Wetiko. He called it the predator, or just, he had different names for it. He didn't have the name Wetiko. And he says, this is the topic of topics. There's nothing more important to understand in our world today than Wetiko. If we don't understand it, then we're doomed. And so the idea is this, is that to the extent we're not in touch with who we actually are, with our nature, then we dream up Wetiko, in a negative way. But the idea is when we get in touch with who we are, with our nature, what do we discover? We discover that our nature, by its very nature, is creative. That is to say, then when we have realization of our nature, we become creative. And the more we creatively express ourselves, the more we know our nature in a positive feedback loop that creates light upon light. And just like when you let in sunlight into a room, the darkness, which seemed real, all of a sudden it instantaneously evaporates as if it never existed. The same way, when you bring in light, when you bring in consciousness, to the sphere of Wetiko, it vaporizes like the phantom that it always was, as if it never existed.
Okay. So you mentioned Castaneda and you talked about, the Wetiko. How did you discover this word? Is it the Native Americans?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, what happened for me was very, without going into the story, I had a personal experience in my family where I had a very seemingly happy, healthy childhood. And then all of a sudden, something played out. In essence, my father got possessed by, I didn't have the name then, but by Wetiko. And, he acted it out, and I was the recipient, being the only child. But the thing which just blew my mind was how the whole field, the whole family system configured to protect the abuser. And then and so this created such suffering for me, being the recipient of my father acting out his abuse, that I went so deeply inwards into my own mind that I had this life-transforming spiritual awakening in 1981, but immediately it got me in trouble, because I was so ecstatic when I began to realize we're having a collectively shared dream, that I got thrown in mental hospitals. And I was diagnosed, oh, you're mentally ill, you'll have this illness the rest of your life. And I knew they were crazy. I knew they had no idea what was happening. I mean, that saved me, having that realization. But then I could not believe the abuse and the madness that was informing the whole psychiatric system. And then I began to recognize, wait a second, the same malevolent force that had come through my father was now coming through the system of psychiatry. And I began to realize it pervades, it's non-local. And then I began to recognize that same evil force was coming through the greater body politic of our world. It was playing out through collective events. That's when I began to realize all of these were iterations of the same deeper fractal. And it was the non-local field that I was talking about, the quantum field that was coming through in this seemingly malevolent way, but it was actually teaching me something. So instead of just becoming completely insane, I was taking notes and drawing maps, and more I began to understand there's something that's being revealed to me. And then I discovered the native idea of Wetiko. And being a modern person, I just, I'm just a translator. I just translated this indigenous wisdom into a modern psychological idiom.
Okay. Talk to us about what's going on in Ukraine right now, Putin and Wetiko. How does all of that interact together?
No, I just wrote an article all about that. It's on my website. And basically, I point out, and I have a big chapter in my new book on Wetiko all about how when there's war is Wetiko. War is Wetiko in action. And what I'm pointing out is that you see, the thing about Wetiko, it's an inner disease of the soul that has a magical ability. And its magical ability is that it's somehow able to extend itself out into the outside world so as to configure events in the outer world in such a way that what's happening in the outer world is reflecting what's happening within a psyche that's under its thrall. What I'm describing, that's just like a dream. We're in a dream, a night dream. The outer dream is a reflection of the inner state of the psyche. So I'm pointing out that the war in Ukraine, when you have the eyes to see, it is showing us, it is Wetiko, in embodied form. But the point is, it's a reflection of an inner archetypal process, a spiritual process inside of us, where in the same way that the kingdom of heaven is within, in the Bible, they talk about there's a war in heaven. And that's also an internal process that's getting dreamed up and revealing itself through the war in Ukraine. And the final point is that what it's showing us is the profound and primary importance of the human psyche in creating events in our life. That until we actually add light to that, then we're going to be fated to continually unconsciously act out in a destructive way our own creative energy.
Okay, so we are in that cycle of acting out unconsciously and things are going horribly wrong. What type of shift can we make to reverse the energy, to bring more love, more light?
Right. Well, the thing is like, so not only the war in Ukraine, just in so many ways, we as a species, it's clear we're enacting collective suicide. We're destroying the very biosphere, the life support system of the planet in so many ways. It's almost as if we want to ensure, in case this way doesn't destroy us, this way will. It's total madness. But I ask the question, how come we're doing that? How come we are destroying ourselves? And I point out that we are destroying ourselves because we don't know how not to destroy ourselves. And that means that encoded in the act of destroying ourselves, this is the way we're teaching ourselves how to not destroy ourselves. Okay, that's an example. Encoded in the pathology is the medicine. But unless we get the message, it's like a recurring dream. When you have a dream and you don't get the message, then it recurs. And it recurs in more and more amplified form until you finally get the message. That's what's happening with the Wetiko epidemic. We are literally dreaming up in more and more amplified forms this message of and it's exactly what we need to know. It's actually unlocking our creative agency. It's connecting us with our power. It's helping us to remember who we are. It's actually showing us the dreamlike nature, and it's unlocking our nature as love and compassion. But if we don't get that, if we don't get the message, because you see, the thing, in essence, what Wetiko is, it's a misidentification of who we think we are. If we think we're a separate self, if I think I'm separate from you, well, then you're an other. As soon as you're an other, fear arises. Fear is the superfood for Wetiko. What Wetiko is showing us, it's literally showing us that we are interconnected, that there's no separate self, that we depend on each other for our own well-being. And that's an expansion of consciousness, and the energetic expression of that is compassion. And that's the medicine. That's the cure for Wetiko. It's encoded, hidden within the pathology is its very cure. And that's what my whole work is about, is trying to show people Wetiko is a revelation. What's happening is a living revelation. But if we don't get the message, then we're doomed.
Okay. In the book, you talk about in chapter 8, a cancer of the soul. So what we're going through now, if we don't heal it, it will continue to just eat away at us. Is it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
eating away civilization or what?
Yeah. So in my work, I try to articulate Wetiko in as many ways as I can imagine. It's
Mm-hmm.
a parasite, it's a mind virus, it's a vampire, all these things. And it's like a cancer. It's a cancer that's metastasizing within the human psyche and within the greater body politic of our species.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's just a way, that's just, sort of this symbolic expression. You see, because the thing is, I'm trying to help people to see Wetiko,
Mm-hmm.
and any one model, oh, it's a vampire, it's a parasite, it's a tapeworm, it's a virus, it's, that has this certain, it'll show us a certain aspect of Wetiko. It's like this. It's like when the quantum physicists discovered the quantum, they had never come across anything like it. It was like coming across this never seen before animal. And they were literally saying, it's like we have this never seen before creature, the quantum, in an animal house, and we're peering from all the different windows, and we see all these different views, and we're trying to put our perceptions and our
Mm-hmm.
all the different perspectives together so as to actually understand what is the nature of this unknown mysterious creature. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with Wetiko. I'm pointing out it's like this, it's like that, it has this aspect and that aspect. It's something we've never seen before. And the origin is in our own mind. It's actually teaching us about who we are and our place in the universe. So that's kind of why, oh, there's a chapter on it being a cancer. There's a chapter
Mm-hmm.
on, I'm just continually trying to circumambulate, from all different directions. And circumambulation, that's an alchemical term, where you circle around the center, making the center, the object of your contemplation, more apparent, more visible, and it creates medicine power. When you
Mm-hmm.
circle around a center, and the whole weight of the soul, because what Tico is teaching us about our soul, about who we are, but it actually will literally create healing energy by doing the circumambulatio. It's like a sacred ritual.
Okay. And how does Wetiko fit into the ascension process? Everybody's using the buzzword ascension right now, as growth and moving
Sure.
upward. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah, it totally fits into that in the sense, if I, to whatever degree I do, see Wetiko, yeah, that'll improve my life and, unlock my creativity and get so many personal benefits. But in the greater scheme of things, that's meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
But if more and more of us actually, if we awaken to what Wetiko is showing us, and we awaken to the dreamlike nature, and we awaken to who we are, and we unlock our creative agency and connect with our compassion, and we connect with each other through
Mm-hmm.
that realization, we discover we can put what we're having the realization of together in a way where we can, in a literal way, change the dream, the waking dream we're having. We can literally, sort of make this difference in the world in a real way, not just in an imaginative way.
Mm-hmm.
In a way of describing that is we discover that we can consciously step into and participate in our own evolution. That's what I mean when I say Wetiko is the greatest catalyst for the evolution of our species that's ever been known. And that is completely, that's mapping on to when people talk about the ascension process, that we
Mm-hmm.
have it within our power, but it all has to do not only with our inner having this realization, but connecting collectively with other people who are having this realization. And that collective realization, whether you call it the 100th monkey phenomena, or the
Mm-hmm.
Bible talks about the 144,000, that's a
Mm-hmm.
symbolic number. When there's a certain yeast in the dough of the bread, it rises, it ascends, it leavens. That's the point. When enough of us connect with each other, we discover we can activate the genius, our collective genius, and we
Mm-hmm.
can conspire to co-inspire each other. That's a true conspiracy theory in a way where we can dream ourselves awake. That's what this is all about. And Wetiko,
Mm.
even though it's manifesting as this evil thing that's destroying us, it's actually our greatest ally.
Okay. So as we are dreaming ourselves awake, can it be a relatively short process, or is it something that is elongated
Well,
out over
it's an
generations?
ongoing, this universe is a work in
Hmm.
progress. It never
Yeah.
gets to an end,
Yeah.
and so are we, and so is our inquiry into Wetiko. So the idea is that when we connect with who we are as creators,
Hmm.
that we are creative beings made in the image of our creator, and we connect with other people who are also tapping into that realization, then the question becomes, oh, okay, now we see Wetiko. We see how it operates by informing and giving shape to world events that are reflecting what's happening inside of our psyches. We see how it operates in our minds via our unconscious reactions and identifications and all that. So we see Wetiko, but then we realize if we become too fascinated with Wetiko, well, then we're feeding it. But if we turn a blind eye, we're feeding it too. That's why the importance of seeing how it works. But then when you see it, you discover, wait a second, I'm a sovereign being. I get to choose how I invest my awareness and my attention.
Hmm.
And I'm now choosing to actually investing my attention into creating the world I want to live in. That I'm discovering, oh, I'm not separate from people. I want to create a world that is an expression of that, a world informed by love and compassion. And that's the dissolver. That's the Wetiko dissolver par excellence of Wetiko.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
we go to your website, awakeninthedream.com, and we click on that articles tab. One of your articles really caught my attention. I'm doing a lot of work with ancestry, and it's liberating the ancestors. So, how does Wetiko help with liberating the ancestors? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I don't think we realize the great connection that we have.
Sure. So in my next Wetiko book, my third one coming out, within
Hmm.
the year,
Hmm.
I talk about what is the genesis of Wetiko. Like some people think, oh, was there a collective trauma that happened, or were there these negative ETs that interfered in our evolution? And I point out, well, I certainly don't know. Those are interesting, but Wetiko is something that is getting created in this and each and every moment. We are colluding in its creation, and tracing it back further, the genesis of Wetiko, I point out, is in unhealed multi-generational ancestral abuse. And to the extent that there's this ancestral abuse that hasn't been healed, the person who hasn't healed it just unconsciously is fated to act it out onto the next of kin, who
Hmm.
then they become the recipient of the inheritance of the lineage of the unhealed abuse. And to the, just in an endless link in a chain, if they don't, integrate it and heal it, then they just act it out in whatever way they do. And the point is that we are the inheritors and the recipients of our ancestors' unconscious, unhealed trauma and abuse. And to the extent that any of us actually, if we do our inner work, integrate our shadow, heal our trauma, however you language it,
Hmm.
to awaken in the dream, to see Wetiko, just all different ways of saying the same thing, then we stop that link in the chain, and we then heal the ancestors, and even, in the future generations, in a way that I can't articulate. I don't fully understand it, but I really have a knowing that that's what happens. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, in a way, your question brings up the real genesis and origin of Wetiko is the unhealed trauma and abuse of our species, keeping in mind that Wetiko informs the process of trauma and addictions.
Oh, interesting, because I was going to talk about addiction. So talk about addictions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like the thing about Wetiko, it inspires us to act out in ways that don't serve us, that are
Hmm.
against our best interest. And we all see ourselves doing that at certain points. And think about an addiction. We actually then are, even with awareness, we will act out the addiction in a way that not only isn't serving us but is actually harming us, And it's very much like trauma. And then our way of dealing with the addiction is, oh, we double down and we do it again. So it becomes a self-reinforcing feedback loop that feeds on itself. And that's a description of Wetiko, because Wetiko is an energy that gets in us and it can literally possess us. It can literally get in the driver's seat, so to speak, of our vehicle, of our soul, in such a way that it's driving the car, it's driving us. And all, so all of a sudden it's like we're compulsively acting something out in the form of our addiction, or in the way of trying to heal our trauma. The way we try to heal it, actually, it recreates the very trauma we're trying to heal from. It's a self-generating feedback loop without end until we actually bring light to it, become aware of it, and that's not fully it. Then we have to actually step out of that feedback loop, of have the energy, and the courage and the awareness to actually step out of the feedback loop, whose origin is within ourselves. We're actually colluding with that process. And all, in my book, I think it's the one that just came out on Wetiko, I talk all about the addiction and trauma process as a way, of understanding Wetiko, and understanding Wetiko helps to unlock the addiction and the trauma process.
Okay. So before we talk about how you work with people in private practice, I noticed that on many of your books, the artist Sting makes very wonderful comments about you. Have you worked with Sting personally, or do you know him?
I mean, he's someone I know, and he reached out to me probably, I don't know, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, and much to my surprise, I get an email from Sting. And he evidently had been studying my work and has been a big fan and supporter of my work. And so I was, really happy about that. And so no, I'm just, and I so appreciate, I mean, he's been so kind and just supportive, because he recognizes that what I'm bringing out, that it's real, it's medicine, and particularly people who've been through their own ordeals, who've been really deeply suffering or traumatized or struggling with addictions or alcoholism or mental illness, or, who've really been through the darkness. People like that, when they come across my work in Wetiko, they immediately recognize what I'm pointing at. But people who haven't really gone there and are still contained in their happy bubble of, oh, everything's great, and, and all that, they'll hear about a mind virus and they just think I'm kind of out there. Yeah, totally.
Okay, so talk to us about private practice. How do you work with people?
I have no idea how to answer that. And it's very creative in that, I'm not a therapist, but and I've been doing this over 25 years. So many of my clients are psychiatrists, therapists, the Jungian analysts. And I just enter the present moment with them, and really try to connect with their dreaming process in a way that I kind of enter it with them. And, and I never know what's going to happen. And that's as it should be. So there's no technique or modality or agenda or anything. And, but people find it really, really helpful, to the point where, I have so many people who want to work with me. I don't even know what to do, type of thing. And, but it's basically because, so I'm this wounded healer, and because I was so deeply, having this wound and trauma from the abuse from my father that I was telling you about. And I went, the archetype of the wounded healer is, instead of avoiding the wound or compartmentalizing it, the wounded healer is somebody who's been deeply wounded, and by going through that experience of their wound, just like a shaman descending into the underworld of the unconscious, they access certain gifts of healing that are helpful for the community, for the world. And so I've written extensively about the wounded healer, and I know that from the inside, because I kind of embody that archetype. And so when people share their suffering and their pain, instead of a normal person might try to fix them or give them advice or try to get away because it's so uncomfortable. No, I'm incredibly comfortable with just presencing people's, pain and suffering and trauma because I'm so familiar and in a way comfortable with my own. And just being seen in that way, I think is so profoundly healing for people.
Yes, it is. You have a new book coming out. Does it have a title yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still in the process.
Hmm.
So I don't really know. I've heard a rumor from the guy who's making the cover. I think they're calling it Undreaming Wetiko, and I like
Oh,
that.
interesting.
Undreaming Wetiko. Just like we can dream up Wetiko, which we're
Hmm.
masters at, we
Hmm.
can undream it. And that's really what my work is about, is showing how we can uncreate and undream Wetiko. And then that energy that was invested in creating the madness and the evil becomes available for creativity, for expressing love and
Hmm.
compassion.
Okay. Well, if you are so inclined, send me a copy and we'll have you back on to talk about it. Now,
That
you have
sounds
one,
great.
you're, you're welcome. You have one book that I have to get, and it's The Madness of George W. Bush. I thought, when he was elected, I actually sat down and cried. But then I picked myself up, and I come to realize to a certain degree he was kind of avenging his dad and whatever happened. But that is a book I'm definitely going to get and check out because I love the political books. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Paul, our time is almost up. Why don't you share a pearl of wisdom with the audience?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, just spontaneously, the pearl is that, instead of falling into despair and pessimism, which we have all the evidence for in the world going so mad and being in such a dark place, what, for example, what the teachings on Wetiko are showing us is that each one of us have this enormous creative power
Hmm.
that, we've just been unconscious of. And it's because we've been unconscious of it that Wetiko, which has no creativity, plugs into our creativity and turns it against us. But when we tap into our nature, and our nature is creative, then we can, in a real way, we can make a difference and genuinely help. And that's available to us. It's always been available to us. It's available to us right now in this moment. And that's the good news. I mean, that's really, really good news.
Okay, well, folks, if you want to really affect change, not only for yourself, but the world, based on what I understand, Paul is saying, stop watching TV and watch you. Go inside. Okay, pay attention to what's going on. Paul, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, it's totally, I just feel so honored. Really can't thank you enough, Mike.
Well, thank you. And to the audience, I thank you for being with us, and I appreciate your time and attention. And please remember that the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of discovering Wetiko. Abundant blessings, light, and love to all. Agape.